everybody. So this video is about two things. The first one is the issue of self-determination and its relationship with Riek Machar. The second one is the issue of federalism in South Sudan. Now, there's a tendency by some South Sudanese to assume that if you criticize something they value, they easily fit that within the narrative of what is good for the people they associate with. So they easily assume that if you criticize federalism, then you are against the interests of their people, which is a dangerous state of mind. Now, I'll start with the issue of self-determination. A few years ago, I wrote an article about self-determination, and one of the things I said is Riek Machar is not the father of self-determination. He played a role, I think a role that should be acknowledged, but it should be put within historical contexts. So self-determination has always been the demand of South Sudanese since 1947, but mostly in the 1960s. So for those of you who have read Joseph Oduor's and William Deng Nial's book, The Problem of Southern Sudan, they were explicit in the book about the demand for self-determination. That was in 1963. Alexis Yango, 1966, in his book, The Nile Turns Red, he wrote about self-determination. Oliver Albino, 1970, also wrote about self-determination. So self-determination is not something Riek Machar created. But what Riek Machar has done, and that is something that is also historical, is that after 1991, when they wrote the Nasser Declaration, they reintroduced self-determination into the political discourse in South Sudan. And by 1994, they forced John Garang to actually accept it. Remember, John Garang officially and the SPLM and SPLA were for the unity of Sudan. A multi-religious, multicultural Sudan. So, but in 1991, Riek Machar and Alama forced John Garang to accept it. By 1994 in Nairobi, they signed what they call Declaration of Principles, DOP. That's when John Garang officially accepted it. So, but to say that Riek Machar is the father of self-determination, that is a problem. Now again, even after Riek Machar reintroduced self-determination into the political discourse and he signed the Khartoum Peace Agreement in 1997 with Bashir, he could not actually instrumentalize self-determination. I remember, for those of you who watched his speech in London in 2004 when he went with John Garang, he acknowledged and he said, Bashir it wasn't honest. Because if he was honest, he would have given Riek Machar the control of the South. John Garang, in one of his videos, talked about what he told Riek Machar in 1999, if I'm not wrong, 1999. So John Garang was explaining that Museveni came to John Garang and told John Garang that you need to meet your brother, and the brother is Riek Machar. And John Garang said, yeah, Riek Machar is my brother, I'm willing to meet him. But Riek Machar was coming with those of Ali El-Haj and some NCP officials. Then John Garang said, okay, I'm meeting my brother, Riek Machar, but not the other one, because he's not my brother. The other one, Ali El-Haj. But then they insisted, and John Garang said, no, I'm only meeting Riek Machar, no one else. So after that, they accepted, and they brought Riek Machar to Gulu, where he met John Garang. And John Garang spoke to him, and he told Riek Machar, look, if self-determination is declared today, almost 100% of South Sudanese will vote for independence. That's John Garang in 1999, telling Riek Machar. So it's not that John Garang didn't understand the issue of self-determination. He understood it. He was just using New Sudan Vision as a strategy for support. So the place of Riek Machar in reintroducing self-determination and forcing John Garang to accept it is something acceptable. But to say that Riek Machar is a father of self-determination when He was not the one who created it in South Sudan, and he wasn't the one who actually finally made it possible, because without the CPA, Riek Machar couldn't bring it in 1997. So that's a problem. Let us accept things as they happen, not as we want them to be. Now, the second part is the federal system. I've never said I'm against the federal system. I've never said that. I've never been against the interest of the people who support federal system. Now, what I have always said is the ethnic federalism issue, like the one you have in Nigeria and the one you have in Ethiopia, where one ethnic group is the one in charge of the state. Like if Ogaden, you have Somali people, and then Oromia, you have Oromo people, and then you have the Tigray people in their own state. You have the Amara people in their own state. And then when you come to the place like Gambela, you have the issue between Nuer and Anuak people, where the other one thinks is the one who is entitled to the leadership. So that kind of ethnic federalism I don't want. But I've also said that any system, federal or not, you institute will not function as long as the leaders who run it work for their own interest. Technically, South Sudan is a federal state, structurally speaking, instead of structure, because powers are not devolved, power are not distributed to the states. So even if you put South Sudan, or put it in the constitution that South Sudan is a federal state, and you still have SPLM leaders in charge, nothing is going to change. The land that is being commandeered by a few individuals in the Equatoria, the Jing people who live in Equatoria, will not go away, because there's no leadership to convince them. There's no leadership to make sure that their own native places are safe for them to go back. So the federal system without a sound leadership is as useless as the current system we have. But some people somehow believe federal system will solve their problems. That if the federal system is institutionalized within the constitution, then somehow it will solve their problems. The land problem, it will solve the issue of insecurity or occupation, things like that. It will not solve it, because remember, everyone is beholden to President Kiir. Everyone is beholden to the president, because as long as he's the one who appoints the governors will always do what he wants. And the powerful officials around the president will always do whatever they want in South Sudan. So what we need is a sound leadership, and yes, the federal system will work. And we don't even need any other structure, because what we have today can be used to devolve powers. We can use the same system to say, okay, let us give some powers to the states. The states will devolve some powers to counties. The counties will devolve some powers to payams and bombers like that. So all you need is a leader who will do that. A leader who is going to say, okay, let us give education to the states. Let us make sure law enforcement is also devolved, so that the states, they have their own state police. Something like that. So without leadership that cares about the people, then nothing is going to happen, because what happens in Africa, and usually in South Sudan, is the country is run for the interest of the select few, the elite. Until you change that, and the system does not work. But I am for federalism. I am for devolution of power. As a teenager in Equatoria and Western Equatoria, I've seen how leaders commandeer lands and they destroy the crops of local people. So I hear you, but we need to be able to discuss these things without someone assuming that someone who criticizes federalism is against the interest of people who value federalism.